From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is Ag Day.
Celebrating a history of agriculture.
Giles County, Tennessee celebrates agriculture with events showcasing livestock and row crops, and a big thank you to the farmers who grow our food.
Something we haven't seen in a while, a market rally.
You probably should be moving a few beans at least to take advantage of this.
As damage reports to farms and livestock start to come in from the southeast. And producers keep watch on a massive port strike that could have far-reaching effects.
Coming up on Ag Day, nearly 20% of the milk produced in the U.S. is exported. So how much of that goes through the ports being impacted by the strike? We'll have that answer from World Dairy Expo this morning on Ag Day.
The impact on dairy from this year's World Dairy Expo right now on Ag Day.
Ag Day is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these seeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Clint Griffiths. Happening right now, some 45,000 dock workers remain on the picket lines. They're on strike at 36 U.S. ports from Maine to Texas. At issue, the International Longshoremen's Association is demanding higher wages and a total ban on the automation of cranes, gates, and trucks that are used in the loading or unloading of freight. Now, those ports handle roughly half of the nation's cargo from ships. So what does it mean for ag trade in and out of the U.S.? Well, the International Food Policy Research Institute creating this graphic. The ag products in red are impacted by the strike, including fresh fruit along with beef and pork products, as we've been telling you about. But it also has the potential to impact more than $1 billion worth of dairy product exports. Now, Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan is at this year's World Dairy Expo in Madison, Wisconsin. And Tyne, people there are watching this strike very closely.
Well, Clinton, the mood here at World Dairy Expo is much better than when we were here last year. Milk prices have improved, and that's creating a better picture for producers. But the biggest concern right now is the strike at U.S. ports. Nearly 20% of the milk produced here in the U.S. is exported. And as we found out at World Dairy Expo, a large part of that goes through the ports being impacted by the strike.
A little over 20% of the shipments last year, for instance, went out of the directly impacted ports. And so for us, that equates to roughly $32 million a week of dairy products just that are supposed to be flowing out of those impacted ports. That's not taken into account the more magnified impacts, too, of the fact that that product has to go somewhere. So that's going to be backing up other parts of the system.
Morris says they are calling on the administration to work with both parties to find a resolution ASAP. But another export issue, Colombia. Morris described it as Colombia has lost their minds over the summer, deciding to launch a countervailing duty case against U.S. exports, claiming that the safety net farmers get here in the U.S. is impacting the milk powder exported from the U.S. into Colombia. She says that is not the case. And there's a hearing today where the U.S. dairy industry and government will argue their case. Again, that hearing is happening today. Reporting from World Dairy Expo in Madison, Wisconsin, I'm Tyne Morgan for Ag Day.
All right, thanks, Tyne. Another developing story we're following. Hurricane Helene has now become the second deadliest hurricane to hit the U.S. mainland in the last 50 years. Along with the human lives lost, producers have been assessing the damage to farms and livestock. Now in Georgia, cotton crops ready for harvest were flattened. USDA estimating insurance payouts for losses there could reach $7 billion. But poultry, timber, and pecan crops also saw heavy damages in the state. Moses Pecans in Uvalde, Georgia, sharing these devastating scenes, saying they have 80% total tree loss across all of their orchards. About 20% of the younger trees are left. While in North Carolina, farmers are having to go to incredible lengths to get their cows milked. The North Carolina Farm Bureau sharing these pictures and video of one farmer helping to move a fellow producer's entire milking herd to a different farm and working to get a milking facility up and running that had sat idle for 9 years. Now, he says he knows of several farmers who have lost all of their winter's feed and some lost cattle as well. The storm also heavily impacting infrastructure with damage to power grids, water contamination, chemical spills, and several roads remain closed. And tropical moisture is once again setting its sights today on the Gulf Coast and Florida. Meteorologist Jack Van Meter has more.
Taking a look at the rainfall for the next 24 hours. Good news, most of the country actually not going to be experiencing any sort of oppressive rainfall there. That is good news, especially for our friends in the southeast, still recovering from Hurricane Helene, just causing devastating flooding to that portion of the country. But we are starting to track some tropical moisture moving in to parts of Mississippi and Alabama and parts of Georgia as well. Florida, of course, going to really be ticking up on the precipitation. Now, there is going to be some rain that does fall in North Carolina, but good news is literally it's going to be less than ½ an inch and even could just amount to right around a trace of rain. Also looking at a system coming through the Great Lakes region, dipping down a little bit on the east coast and also on the upper west coast as well, tracking out some moisture moving through the rest of the country. Again, that's your precipitation for the rest of the week. And harvest is underway in Renner, South Dakota. Carl sharing his picture with us of two of his top helpers. He says soybeans are ready to go, and you can tell those two are also ready to go as well. I'll have more in your forecast in just a second.
Here's something we haven't seen in a while, a rally in both corn and soybeans. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me. Michelle, that's a welcome sight for farmers who still have last year's crops in the bin. Now, what's behind it?
Well, Clinton, corn and soybeans scored contract and four-year lows in August, not just on crop size, but as fund or speculative traders were holding a record short position in the grains. However, the funds have been exiting those shorts the last few weeks, which has produced a decent rally off the lows. The next question is the rally about done? It's rather uncommon for corn and soybeans to rally into or during harvest, but especially with USDA projecting near to record crops. Market analysts tell me most of the rally has been speculative traders finally taking profits on their record short positions.
As of the close here at the end of the quarter, end of October, they've probably come out of probably nearly 200,000 or more corn contracts. And certainly about probably not quite the same 150, 130 to 150,000 contracts of beans.
There are only 5 years when corn and beans rallied during August and September, and when they did, the markets topped out around the October WASDE report or when farmers ran out of storage.
We've exceeded the rally that those years had by a fair margin in both corn and beans, which tells me that if those patterns hold, we're kind of getting up into levels where you're, if you haven't made sales to take advantage of a $1.14 rally in beans, for example, you probably should be moving a few beans at least to take advantage of this. And, 40, 50 cent rally in corn, same thing.
One catalyst for the fund short covering in both corn and beans was hot, dry weather in Brazil. But with a possible change in the forecast, at least soybeans might be topping for the time being.
You got to be a little uneasy if it starts to rain down there and they can start planting what could be a record crop down there.
Yet if South American crop concerns persist, analysts say the markets could take another leg higher. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Now, you can bet the situation surrounding avian flu is being discussed at World Dairy Expo, and one researcher may have made a breakthrough into what's spreading the virus. A Kansas State University researcher says spread of H5N1 may have something to do with milking practices. Now, he conducted research on 9 calves infected with the virus, 3 lactating cows, and 3 other dairy cows also infected. He reports the calves had only mild disease and no transmission to other calves, while the dairy cows developed severe mammary gland infections and a drop in milk yield. He says the findings indicate the milk and milking procedures, rather than respiratory spread, are likely the primary routes of H5N1 transmission between cattle. Right now, the virus has been reported in 14 states involving 242 herds. The latest reading of farmer sentiment continues to show a decline. The Ag Economy Barometer falling 12 points in September, now at a reading of 88. Now, surveyors with Purdue University and the CME Group reporting the index of current conditions and the index of future expectations declined as well. They say the numbers represent the weakest barometer and future expectations readings since March of 2016, when the farm economy was in the throes of an economic downturn.
We continue to ask producers about their biggest concerns for their farming operation in the upcoming year, and the top concern continues to be high input cost, followed by lower crop and livestock prices. And in fact, those two are nearly equal this month, with higher input costs chosen by 34% of the respondents and lower crop and livestock prices chosen by 33% of the respondents.
Surveyors say producers expect markedly worse financial performance for their farms in the upcoming year compared to their expectations at this time last year. We talked about the rally in futures prices, but did that trend continue across the board on Wednesday? We'll take a look coming up next. And later, we're off to the volunteer state where one community is celebrating their agricultural roots today in the country.
Register now for the Milk Business Conference, December 10th and 11th in Vegas, for a chance to win tickets to the National Finals Rodeo while in town.
Corn and especially wheat moving higher along with livestock on Wednesday. AgDay's Michelle Rook is back with more in Markets Now.
A mostly higher day in the grains on Wednesday, except for soybeans. Ted Seifert is back with us. And Ted, let's talk about the wheat market. Some big gains there, some new highs for the move. Is that war premium or is that weather premium at this point?
Yeah, Michelle, I'm going to say it's a bit of both. Obviously, with tensions heating up in the Middle East and also with Russia, Ukraine, there's a lot of things going on globally that make us concerned about, what global wheat trade is going to look like. But also, just this week, Russia's declared states of emergency in two of their bigger growing provinces. And also, these are areas that are on the border of Ukraine, which makes you wonder how that Ukrainian crop is going to be looking. They're just getting planted, but they're behind on planting. And the outlook isn't really very good for their rates. So you put that together with the struggles that France has had with their wheat crop. And that's really given a lot of support to the wheat market, along with the global conflict and tension premium that's come in. It's been a very good reason for funds to cover short positions just because of the uncertainty of all of that.
Is the corn market just following wheat, or is this all fund short covering?
It certainly was really kind of on the back of strength from wheat. And by clearing this 100-day moving average in corn, your technical traders, they look at that and they see that as being pretty bullish. I'm going to say that I think corn could have had a better day today, and I'm a little bit disappointed that it didn't. There's still a lot of producer selling that I think needs to happen. So I'm a little skeptical that corn has a whole lot of upside potential here in the short run. Longer term, I am pretty friendly for corn, but in the short run, I'm wondering if we're kind of getting to this near-term high.
Yeah. Have the funds covered most of their shorts in corn and wheat?
Yeah, so for corn, we were on about 124,000 contracts with the funds being short as of last Tuesday. And based on what we've done here, even in just, since the last 3 days, you would imagine that is probably down to net short 60 or even 40,000 contracts. So yeah, they're getting pretty close to flat, or at the very least, there's not a whole lot less left to cover. So I don't get the feeling that we're going to see another 30 cents put on top of this thing.
Thanks for joining us. Ted Seifert, Zener Ag Ted. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
Taking a look at temperatures again this afternoon, we actually have a pretty nice gradient from south to north. We can see down south, people are going to be in the 80s, 83 degrees for a high temperature in Atlanta. Moving up north just a little bit, St. Louis, 76 degrees, slowly but surely getting cooler. Minneapolis only topping out right around 71 degrees, 64 actually up in Rochester there. And as we can see, we do have this dip in the jet stream, low pressure system moving up and starting to cool off parts of the country. And talking about cooling off, look at tomorrow morning's temperatures. Pretty cool for much of the country, 40 degree St. Sue Marie there. So again, may want to grab that light jacket heading out into the fields this morning. And then for tomorrow's high temperatures, again, much of the same situation that we are seeing today as well. And again, all caused by the jet stream. As we can see, we do have a trough that is trying to work out through Canada, but it looks like it's just going to be coming just short. But that being said, as we can see, big contrast in temperatures, especially for the northern half of the region. I'll put this in motion here, stop it here on Friday. And as we can see, next disturbance coming off of the west coast by Friday, making its way throughout the country. Slight ridging pattern happening out to the western parts of the Rocky Mountains and western plains, that is, and it'll start to move its way throughout the country. We can see that trough starts to ride on top of the ridge there, trying to exit throughout the Great Lakes region here. And as we can see, really diving down, going to give some chilly temperatures to end off next week. And also take a look at this ridge building right back up. Are going to be seeing some above normal temperatures, especially for this time of year. Remember, we're in October. We're probably going to be seeing widespread areas of 70 degrees moving on throughout the rest of next week. Something to definitely keep an eye on. Hickory, North Carolina, 79 degrees, low of 65 degrees. Hot Springs, Arkansas, take a look at that. 87 degrees, low of 58 degrees. Sunny conditions there. And Clarkson, Nebraska, 78 degrees, low of 42 degrees. Going to be a windy one.
Beef marketing company AgDay, which was accused in a Ponzi scheme, could soon have new owners. The North Dakota Monitor is reporting North Dakota rancher Wiley Bice expects to purchase AgDay in a couple of weeks. Now, AgDay does business as American Grazed Beef. The deal is said to be worth more than $15 million. American Grazed Beef sells beef products directly to consumers online. A court hearing to possibly approve the sale is set for next Monday. As we reported in December of last year, the Securities and Exchange Commission had accused AgDay of diverting millions of dollars in investors' funds to make Ponzi payments. It alleged the company had raised at least $191 million from more than 2,100 investors. And police in Central Florida are looking for the public's help in finding some cattle rustlers. The Osceola County Sheriff's Office says cattle are missing from Overstreet Ranching in Kenansville. Deputies report 53 crossbred yearlings were removed from their pens at the ranch's headquarters last month. The calves were a combination of heifers and steers of various colors, and when they were taken, the calves were then mixed with other cattle being shipped to market. Officials believe it took several people multiple trips with the stock trailer in order to remove the calves. Up to $10,000 in reward money is being offered for information. The cattle are just one piece of the agricultural puzzle in a Tennessee community. Up next, we'll stop by as Giles County celebrates their agricultural heritage in the country. Tennessee community is honoring its agricultural heritage and looking to the future. Charles Denny of the University of Tennessee takes us to Ag Week celebrations.
In these hurried, high-tech times, it's nice to see something traditional every now and then. Hear a youth sheep show at the Giles County Agri-Park. Youngsters display their prized livestock and how they've learned the responsibility of taking care of an animal.
We have a feeding schedule for them. I wake up at 6, feed them, and then we feed them at 6 o'clock, a 12 hours difference, so they can get the best protein and nutrients.
This event was part of Ag Week here in Pulaski, leading up to the very popular Giles County Fair. The goal was to recognize farm families and the diversity of operations that define modern-day agriculture.
But we are very diverse in agriculture. You know, we have corn, cotton, soybeans, a lot of field crops, a lot of hay production here.
UT Extension Director Kevin Rose says, add to that horticulture and agritainment. UT Extension helped coordinate Ag Week and promoted the industry's importance to this area.
Well, you know, we just had the 22 census, I think, came out, and I believe it reports about close to $75 million in sales yearly with agriculture products. So you can import, it's the #1 industry in our county.
No question, agriculture is vital to the Giles economy, but also part of the heritage and culture with a goal to keep it that way.
That's one reason that we definitely want to talk about agriculture in the community more, is to say that this is where we've been and this is where we're going, and agriculture is always going to be a part of that.
Ray Jordan's operation features some of the best cattle genetics in the country.
females end up going into our production sale in the spring, in April. The bulls, most of them leave to individual customers here off the farm. Most of our bulls will end up within 150 miles of here, although there are some in Florida and Mississippi and Louisiana, so they're scattered around pretty well.
This celebration, combining history and tradition and a nod to a new generation, is a source of civic pride for Giles County. When you get a sense of Ag's impact, you often get an appreciation for it. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles, and that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day on Farm.